"Is there space left in your bed?" she asked, her voice trembling at the doorway. I froze, not because of the question, but because of the suitcase in her hand. I had seen her like this only once before. Lost, scared, and pretending she wasn't either. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her and whispered, "What if you said you wanted to stay forever?" She laughed, but it wasn't real laughter. It was the kind people give when they're trying not to break. "Forever is a big word, Daniel," she said. "I'm barely holding myself together for today." There was something in her eyes that made me step forward. Fear mixed with exhaustion, like she'd been carrying a weight too heavy for too long. Her name was Mia. We had met 8 months ago at a community center event. She was helping organize food for families in need. I was fixing broken shelves in a storage room. She offered me lemonade, I offered her a wrench, and somehow a friendship formed out of small moments like that. She never talked much about her home life, but the bruised emotions behind her smiles always hinted at storms she didn't show. When she stepped inside my apartment that night, she looked around like she was seeing safety for the first time. "I didn't know where else to go," she admitted quietly, placing her suitcase near the couch. "I didn't ask questions." Sometimes kindness isn't interrogation, it's simply presence. We sat together, not talking for a while. The silence wasn't awkward. It was the kind you share with someone who desperately needs a place to breathe. Eventually she whispered, "He said I'm too difficult to love. Said I'm a burden." Her voice cracked. And I believed him. I felt something twist inside me. Not anger. Not pity. Just deep, human compassion. "You're not a burden," I said. "You're someone who gives more kindness than she ever receives." She stared at me as if she wasn't sure whether to cry or argue. That night, she didn't sleep in my bed. She didn't even sleep on the couch. She fell asleep sitting beside me, her head on my shoulder, like her body finally allowed itself to rest because it felt safe. I didn't move for hours. I didn't want the moment to end for her sake. The next morning, she apologized again and again. "I shouldn't have come here. I'm causing trouble." I shook my head. "The only trouble would have been you facing that night alone." That finally made her exhale. A real breath. The kind that sounded like healing. Days passed. She stayed, but not because she needed a bed. She stayed because she needed space. Space to breathe, to rebuild, to remember who she was before life convinced her she was unworthy. We cooked together, talked late into the night, walked around the neighborhood like two people relearning joy. Every day, she grew a little lighter. But healing isn't a straight line. One evening, she received a call. I wasn't trying to listen, but her voice carried through the hallway. "No, I'm not coming back," she said. "I can't live like that anymore." There was a long pause. Then she whispered, "I'm not yours to control." When she came out, her hands were shaking, but her eyes were determined. "I didn't want you to hear that," she said. "I'm glad I did," I replied gently. "Why?" "Because it means you finally see your worth." Something changed in her expression then, something warm, hopeful, almost unbelievable. A week later, she knocked on my bedroom door. "Daniel," she said softly, "can I ask you something?" I opened the door and saw that same hesitation, but now it was painted with something new, trust. "Is there space left in your bed tonight?" I want to feel safe." My heart clenched, but not in the way people assume. It wasn't romantic. It was human. "There's always space for someone who's learning to stand again," I said. She smiled, small, fragile, but real. She lay on one side of the bed, I on the other. We talked until we drifted asleep. No closeness, no boundary crossed, just two souls finding warmth where the world had turned cold. Kindness, not romance, filled the room. But the twist came a month later. Her ex showed up unannounced. He stood outside my door, shouting accusations. It wasn't the words that shocked her, it was the neighbor stepping out and saying, "Sir, she deserves peace. Let her go." Hearing a stranger defend her made her knees shake. She looked at me afterward and whispered, "All this time, I didn't know people like you existed." That night, she made a decision. "Daniel, I'm moving into a place of my own. Not because I want to run away from here, but because I finally learned something." She looked at me with steady eyes. "You taught me I'm allowed to build a life where kindness is normal, not rare." I felt proud, quietly, deeply proud. Losing her presence in my home hurt a little, but seeing her walk toward independence was worth everything. On her last night in my apartment, she hugged me tightly. "What if someday," she whispered, "I say I want to stay forever?" I smiled. "Then I'll know you're saying it from strength, not fear." She left with a light in her eyes I'd never seen before. A light she earned. And as I watched her go, I realized something too. Sometimes the greatest kindness you can offer someone is not saving them, but helping them save themselves.